Good morning. If you can hear me, put yes in the chat. I want to make sure that you can hear me. Before we start this morning, we have a lot to learn together today. Want to say hello to everyone that's here live: David, Liliana, Tanja, Asif, Jewel, Ron, and so many more. I think some of your comments are delayed, but if you can hear me, put yes in the chat. Good morning. And so today, what we're going to cover are LinkedIn newsletters, which I would argue is probably one of the biggest opportunities that people understand the least on LinkedIn, especially business owners. And when we are working with a client, it is one of the most important factors to our process working with that client. So yes, content is great. It's important. And when I say content, I mean short form video content and all the content that you see on the feed. But LinkedIn newsletters are critically important, not just for short-term results, but also for long-term results. And we'll get into why. So if you could hear me, just put yes, just to make sure. Great to see everyone. I just want to make sure I'm live. Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll start. Now, the first thing to understand is actually, let's take a little bit of a vote here. And like the live, heart the live if you're listening. So if you have a LinkedIn newsletter, put 1. If you don't have one, put 2 in the chat. And I'm going to show you a few examples of some that, are from not just ourselves, but also clients to give you perspective of what they actually are. So let's see what the consensus is here. Ones and twos. Okay, so it's about half and half. I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing to understand is that LinkedIn newsletters are a way to leverage the network that you already have. And I would write that down somewhere. So imagine, for any of you who have a private email list, if you have a private email list off of LinkedIn, put 3 in the chat. For any of you that have a private email list, it took a lot of work, probably most likely, to build that email list. And you start from scratch and you had to pay for email marketing software, so on and so forth. LinkedIn, you're leveraging your network. So if you have 5,000 followers or 2,000 followers on LinkedIn, when you start your LinkedIn newsletter, every single one of those people will get the opportunity to subscribe. And we're actually going to do this live today. We're going to give you a template and tools for you to start your LinkedIn newsletter very easily, and also templates for you to write your first 4 very easily. So it gives everyone in your network that is a follower the opportunity to subscribe. Now, I want you to listen to me very closely. If you ever get into live events, which is what we're going to cover on Friday, when you invite people to your live events, you will be limited to inviting people who are first-degree connections, which means that I am connected to you, you are connected to me. One of us had to send each other a connection request and the other accepted at some point or another. You cannot directly invite from the event feature second and third degree connections. But your LinkedIn newsletter can fill that gap. The other thing is that the LinkedIn kind of algorithm is designed to prioritize first degree connections as well. So if I'm a second or third degree, I'm less likely to even know that you posted unless your post is going mini viral. So the gap here is that LinkedIn newsletters, because it goes to your followers, not just your connections, a lot of those followers will be second and third degree connections. So it's a way for you to have direct communication, for you to, in a sense, kind of find a loophole and beat the algorithm to not just your first degree connections whenever you wish, but your second and third degree connections. Does this make sense? But yes, in the chat, this makes sense. The other thing is that when you post, you're probably getting engagement from, let's say, like 1% to 3%, 5% of your network on average. But when you have a LinkedIn newsletter, for the people that subscribe, the average rate that we see is about a 40 to 50% engagement. And again, you're in control of when these people receive the notification. And when they do receive it, so when you publish an article, it will be on your LinkedIn as an article, but it will also be sent via email. So all of your subscribers will get your article in their emails on behalf of LinkedIn. And most of these notifications go to the top of their inbox because LinkedIn's domain authority and trust with the email providers is so high. So it's not going to be marked as something like spam. So the power of this cannot be underestimated, and I'll show you. So let me just, plus it really like demonstrates authority. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this is, can you see this screen? So this is one of our clients, all right? If we go to his LinkedIn profile and you go to the activity section, all of a sudden you see something that's called visibility for B2B founders, and it's his LinkedIn newsletter. Now, when most people start a LinkedIn newsletter, you'll only see one because they'll create their first one to launch and then they'll kind of be inconsistent. But I could see all of his editions here, and I could see that he has had quite a few editions. And it's kind of like a YouTube library of free resources that I can go click into and read if I'm someone new that's coming to his profile. Also, when you start to create content like one we'll cover tomorrow, if I am new and I land on your profile, LinkedIn will automatically promote your newsletter. So I'll get a notification saying, hey, do you want to subscribe to Visibility for B2B Founders? And if your content is correct, then your LinkedIn newsletter should also resonate with me and I should subscribe. I could also click here, I could share it, I could subscribe, and I could see that he has 42 editions. And I could see that they look professional, all of that. Does this make sense? Same thing with Jace. I could see that he has 57 editions, his subscribers, what it's about. And if I want to kind of read some of this stuff, I could click into it. So just from the get-go, this is Dr. Geneva. The future is female. I could see her subscribers. I could share, and I could click into any one of these. All right. And if I'm actually subscribed, like Shankar is subscribed to my newsletter that I sent out this morning, I will not just get a notification on LinkedIn that says, hey, John or Sally just released the next edition of, their LinkedIn newsletter. I will also get an email. So if you see, this is Shankar's face up here because it went to his inbox. And then this would be the subject line. So he got an email called LinkedIn Newsletters Masterclass for Entrepreneurs. The thumbnail that you put into your newsletter will be at the top. And then people can have a choice. They could read it in their inbox, or they could read the article on LinkedIn. Okay. So you see how powerful this is? So if I want to go back into LinkedIn, here it is. Right? And people could do that. Obviously, we've already read this, but do you see what I'm saying? Do we see the power of this? Put yes in the chat. Okay. Now I'll tell you where people go wrong. All right. So I'm going to share Share this tab. So where people go wrong, and these are the type of notifications that you get when someone launches their newsletter. So because I'm a follower of these people, when they launch their newsletter, I also received a notification, hey, do I want to subscribe? Now, um, like MedTech Sundays is good in terms of like med tech, because I guess if I'm in med tech, I would want to learn about it. But it could have been more niche. Like, is this med tech for CEOs? Is this like med tech for recruiters? Is this med tech insights? Like, what is it? And so I probably would have replaced Sundays with something more specific. It could have been like med tech community, med tech news, med tech updates. I don't know. I don't know if it's for the medical technicians. I don't know if it's just information about the med tech industry. So if I am not in med tech and I really don't know what this is about, or if I am in med tech and it's not specific enough, I'm going to click ignore. So we have to understand that when we launch our LinkedIn newsletters, the content does not really matter. And for the first one, because most people will not read your article when you launch and then decide if they'll subscribe. The only thing that's going to matter is the title of your LinkedIn newsletter and whether it resonates with the right person that we talked about yesterday or not. Put one in the chat if you're understanding. So, my perspective, that's great, but I have no idea what it's about. It could be, mindfulness perspective. It would give a little bit more insights. This I don't even know what language this is, so obviously I'm going to click ignore because I don't read that language. Right? This is a little bit better. High performance leadership, something that I would be more likely to resonate with. This is very specific. Surrogacy path to parenthood. So if I was interested in getting a surrogate, I would click accept, right? So 9 out of 10 LinkedIn newsletter titles that I see are just not specific enough when the actual invite comes through. And if it's not specific enough, and if I don't feel like this is for me, I really want to read more about this resonates with me, this is exactly what I need, then I'm not going to subscribe. And what a lot of people do is they do general titles thinking like, oh, I'll get more subscribers. But they can kind of that could be their own weakness, because then you're building a subscriber list of people that are not your prospects. So, or the type of people that you want to work with. And then, your newsletters are going to those people. And then you're 4, 6, 8 newsletters in and nobody has booked a call. Okay, so do we understand the power of the title? So that's the first thing that we have to define, is the title needs to speak to the audience that we defined yesterday. And if it doesn't, if it's too general, if you're trying to appease everyone in the title, if you're not specific enough, then you're going to just start with a subscriber list that's not your ideal client. So put some ideas for the titles in the comments. And I'll kind of go through whether or not they're specific enough. And then we're going to go through the process of launching your newsletter. Female Leadership Weekly. And so female leadership is kind of general. Do you know the title of most of the female leaders that you serve? Like how they actually identify themselves on LinkedIn? Now here's okay, so one little caveat. Because I see like high performance for CEOs and business owners, it has to be 30 characters or less. So it can't be too long. And like I see someone asking for the banner and stuff like that. As you can see, the banner doesn't matter for the first one, right? I didn't see any of their banners. I didn't see any of the content. They could have written a Nobel Peace Prize winning article for their first LinkedIn newsletter launch. It takes me a lot of energy to click in and go through this whole discovery to even realize whether you write is great or not. I'm just going to look at the title. And if you don't win me in the title, then you've lost me. Right? So for the first one, it doesn't matter. Now for the other ones, it does. So think of like the first one as kind of just like the trigger to launch and to get the right people to subscribe. And then the second one is the real first one in terms of an article, because that's the one that that's the first one that they're going to get in their emails. High performance for C-level. So this is a good one. Let's just use this one as an example. So high performance for C-level, I'd assume that at C-level they are high performers, right? So the nuance here is, are they at C-level and don't believe that they're high performers, right? Or do they already believe that they're high performers, so they'll kind of like just assume that they know it all, like I've probably, I'm already a high performer, I don't need that, right? And it could be that there's something specific around a specific pattern or something that they want to get better at. So maybe it could be planning your exit for C-level. Maybe all of them want to work really hard in the next 5 years so they could exit the company that they've kind of helped build or whatever. So you have to really be strategic with the title. Does this make sense? Because sometimes we may choose titles that they may not resonate with entirely. Or maybe they want to hire high performers, right? Maybe like one of their pain points is like, hey, I'm a high performer, but my team really needs to step it up. And so maybe you would kind of leverage that point in the title. The title can be 30 characters. Live beyond loss, dealing with ageism. So dealing with ageism in the workplace, or like where? Nails and hammers. I don't know what that's about. Data protection for business owners. Okay, so this is a good one too, because if your clients know, like if the clients that you serve, when they start with you, they know that they have to protect their data, then this is great. But most business owners will probably ignore data protection until like they're recovering from some they got their data stolen. So it's kind of the same thing, right? Because if your business owners don't really understand data protection, or they use other words to describe it, then you may want to change the title. Yeah, this one's good. From seed to scale up. I'd probably do like, I'd probably just make it shorter, like Founder's Guide Seed to Scale Up. Because remember, like if it's too long, or even if your name is too long, so this is something to keep in mind. If you have a lot of degrees or like letters after your name on LinkedIn, it could cut off on the phone. So let me show you an example, and then we're going to actually launch one live here. So coming back to this screen, remember, some of these people are on mobile, okay, when they're getting your notification, when they're just checking this stuff. So So Jennifer Garrett's like what I've seen when people have like JD, LLM, MBA, or they have the first, the middle, and the last name, or maybe they have two last names, is that when the notification comes in on the phone, it could look cut off. So I could say I could see the name and then invited you to, and I may only be able to see like the. So that's something to keep in mind. If you have a lot of letters after your name, you may want to just remove them temporarily for your launch because that could affect the subscriber rate in the beginning. All right, so let's pretend that we're going to launch something now. So this is how you would do it. And are you ready? Put yes in the chat so that I know you're with me. Yes. Put yes. It's a little bit delayed. Okay. So here we go. So you'd go to your LinkedIn, and I believe you could still only do this on the desktop or on your laptop. So I don't think you could launch it on your phone. So you're going to go to start a post and you're going to click write article. All right. Once you do that, you're going to go over here and you're going to click manage and you're going to click create a newsletter. And I'm going to turn on my cursor. Hold on. Can you see my cursor now? The green thing. So you're going to click create newsletter. So manage and then create newsletter. This will pop up. So this is where, you would put the title, how often you publish, and, newsletter description with your photo. Now, the photo that you choose should be the one that's on your profile. All right. So don't get very creative and crazy. It should just match the one that's on your LinkedIn profile. And I don't recommend putting logos for photos either, unless potentially it's a company page, but we're not even getting into the weeds of a company page, in today's training. So let's say that I wanted to teach video to CEOs or to founders. So like I could say video marketing for founders, right? How often do I want to publish? I would recommend weekly, but think about the bandwidth that you could kind of deal with where quality would not diminish, right? And then here, let me just get the headshot. So same one as my LinkedIn profile, right there. And then a newsletter description is just one sentence. So I will share how to create better videos as a founder. So, yeah. Okay. If you type for too long, it's going to cut you off. So there, it's cut off. So it could literally just be like one longer or like middle length sentence. And people won't see this when you launch. They'll only see it like when it's at the top of your profile with a little descriptor under it. They will see this though. So I'll click done. All right. And then what I'll do is I'm going to click create new edition. Now, this does not mean that the newsletter was launched. There's a difference between creating a newsletter and launching a newsletter. The newsletter is created, but nobody has been notified. Nothing has happened of that sort yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new edition. All right. Now, once I create this edition, then it will be done. So once I publish my first article within my LinkedIn newsletter, all of the notifications to all of my followers will go out and give them the opportunity to subscribe. And remember, they're not going to see the title. They're not going to see the article. They're not going to see much of that. But they will see the title and my face and my name. Does this make sense? Yes, you could change, and we'll get to Q&A with all the questions after, but are we on the same page? But one in the chat before I continue. Okay. Okay. Now, to keep this simple, the brand template will be in here, but we created a little brand template, right? Because we need the little thumbnail. So you can put your title here or here. Just the what we have found to work best is like a big picture of your face. And for this one, you could change the picture if you have more pictures. If not, just use the same picture. I had the same picture for like a year on my thumbnails. And then here, you would just put the name of the newsletter for the first one. So it'd be video marketing for founders. Now, if you're some designer, you could go crazy with it. But if you are someone that is not a designer that has to serve clients and you are also doing this, then I recommend to not try to be a designer and spend an hour on the thumbnail. All I did was drag my picture and change the title and we're done. I'm not trying to be the Mona Lisa of, design, and they're not even going to see it. They'll see it really for the second one. Does this make sense? So in 1 minute, I have my thumbnail and you'll be provided with this template. I could have also used this one, but you don't have to be fancy unless you tell yourself that story. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go back. And Shankar's here now. What's up, Shankar? So let's go back to sharing the screen. Shankar, I could hear it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna mute. Okay, there you go. So here I'm gonna put the thumbnail. So I'm gonna click. We're gonna have this. All right, yay. Okay, it looks fancy. Here, I'm just gonna put video marketing for founders. And then here I'm gonna put Shanee Moret, founder at Growth Academy .global. Now we have another little goodie. I feel like I'm like giving out candy today, like a goodie bag at a birthday party. So we created a GPT that will also be in the chat. Put one in the chat if you want it, and if you're live in the training right now. Put one in the chat. If you want the launch GPT, it's going to ask you some questions. You'll need the title, but it'll help you create the launch article. All right. Now, we don't like ChatGPT could maybe help you get the title, but you really want to use more of your brain power for this. You want to go here once you have the title. So it's going to ask you a couple questions. I want to launch my newsletter, and it's going to be video marketing for founders, right? And let's do it. Okay, Who are you writing for? Early stage founders, tech founders, or a broader range of entrepreneurs? I'm going to go for founders with a team of 3 to 10. Yep. What are the 3 things that you will share about? And you see, like when I'm saying more of the size, it's understanding, oh, they probably are juggling multiple things. They probably don't have a full marketing department yet, so they will probably need to be involved. And that is who I work with. I don't work with any founder. I don't care how big they are. We've worked with founders that lead $100 million organizations that do $100 million a year. I will not work with the founder unless they are willing to also be involved with their video marketing, period. So what specific topics or insights will you cover that these founders will find valuable? So I'm going to do 1, how I built my personal brand to almost 1 million on LinkedIn with video. 2, how I'm growing on YouTube with video. 3, video workflows. 4, repurposing video they already have. 5, LinkedIn short form video, etc. So I'm just going to say, like, hey, what are the things that I'm going to talk about in this particular newsletter? And then it's going to be like, does this sound good? What is your call to action? They can go to ugrow.club to register for the next training. Okay. And then it's going to be like, great. Here's a draft. I have some exciting news. This is the start of my LinkedIn newsletter, why I'm creating this now. And it's true, as a founder with a small team, you should know the importance of standing out. I've built my personal brand to almost 1 million on LinkedIn. With video, I want to share the strategies that have helped me grow, not only on LinkedIn, but also now on YouTube. My goal is to help founders like you do the same without needing a huge marketing team budget. Okay, this looks good. Good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy. You see how easy this was? Because remember, this is just the announcement. So we just need this for people to get invited. And then the next one is really the first one where we share actionable strategies, where we give something of real value that they can run with. Does this make sense? Put yes in the chat. Put yes. Okay. So now I'm going to share, and I'm going to go up here. Okay, I have some exciting news, and I don't need all this, right? Like, this is more my style. This is the start of my newsletter. This is what it is. So I'm going to do a headline, why I'm creating this now. And I could be like, 2 reasons. I am currently showing this on a live for LinkedIn newsletters and how to start one. And that's the truth. What I will share in the upcoming weeks, right? How I built. So then it's number 1, how I built my personal brand. And then it could just be this with the colon or semicolon, whatever. This. And then this. And this is actually good because, 1. So 1, 2. They may be interested in this, right? I'll get rid of this, but it's actually good if you do this. So I could be like, after creating videos for 4+ years now and helping over 100 clients do the same. So what am I doing? I'm adding credibility. And then there's a quote. Anytime there's a quote, you want to do this, little quotations. I'm excited to share what to do next. And then here, I could do Shanee, Moret. And I like, let's grow together. And I could also change this. I could be like, let's grow together, PS, done. Now, again, I'm not trying to write a Nobel Peace Prize thing for the launch. So I see a lot of people that are like, oh, let me read 1 million times. Okay, we're going to launch. Okay. And then you come here, post to anyone, plus the subscribers. Once I click publish, you all should get the notification within a couple of minutes. Right. So we're not overthinking. Part of the reason why no one does anything or gets anything done is, While you overthink for 3 weeks, another founder is just taking action and already put in 15 articles. I have one client who, once he launched, he started publishing articles daily just so he could get that much data back within a month. Does this make sense? Put action in the chat if this makes sense. Now, it's important to understand that the people that will start to subscribe, it's like, why would you subscribe if you're not interested in video? Why would you subscribe if you don't see yourself as a founder, right? Even if you're not a founder yet. Maybe you still have a job and are building something on the side. So, does this make sense? Okay. So once you launch, what's going to happen is you're going to see this, and then you're going to, every time you refresh, I don't care, even if you have a small network of 1,000 people, you're going to see more subscribers. And then you're going to be able to click them. And then I'm going to be able to see, okay, are these like, okay, microbiologist, third, second. She seems interesting to me. Philanthropist, board of director. Why can't I scroll down? Oh, relations provider, operations training. Okay, if I want to connect with her, I could leverage my LinkedIn newsletter. But you see, second and third and second. See all these people? Independent aerospace and defense consultant. He seems interesting to me. So let's say that I want to, because we've actually helped another aerospace consultant girl on LinkedIn. Let's say I want to connect with Jim. I'd click and I'd say connect, and then add a note. I'm going to say, hey, thanks for subscribing to my newsletter. Let's connect. So you could see if you're already connected with the person, it'll say 1, and you'll be able to send them a message. If you're not connected with them, you could use this list as like, oh, do they, who do I want to connect with from this subscriber list? If they're not already my first degree connections, right? So let me go. Like Agnes seems interesting. She's a CEO and founder. I'm going to go to her profile. She seems like, she's very active on LinkedIn. She already has her top voice badge. She's a board member. She's a CEO. Where is she at? Switzerland. Okay, I'm going to go here. Connect. Hey, Agnes. Thanks for subscribing to my newsletter. Let's connect. And if they don't want to connect with me, I'll survive, right? It's not the end of the world. Does this make sense? So just what this does is initially it just gets you top of mind with your followers. And what will happen for a lot of our clients is like their network who already trusts them, that has seen them on LinkedIn for a long time, will be like, oh, wow, I saw your newsletter. They'll start to reach out even outside of LinkedIn. And they're starting to build you're building a list of people that are the right people that are also interested in this thing that you're really good at, that may just so happen to be connected to your offer, right? So this is so important because if anyone on this list is on here, they're interested one way or another in video. And if I heavily talk about video, if I won't work with you unless you do video, then it makes sense, right? So it has to be a filter. One of the things that I can tell you about inbound content marketing, like inbound, attracting the right people, is if you're not repelling the wrong people, then, you'll never get an inbound client, or you won't get them very predictably. Now, once we've launched, you better be prepared for next week, because a week goes fast. So the question becomes, okay, what is the long-term strategy with this newsletter? How often will I publish? And what are the first 4 editions? And before we get into all of that, I want Shankar to kind of explain the power of the long-term strategy with the newsletter in terms of SEO.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you all realize, but you've just been given a 6-figure gift. The reason I say it like that, so, well, first of all, thank you, Shanee. I'm always, don't know how I feel about you giving away so much value here. But the reason I'm saying it is because in one of my businesses, when we help companies with SEO, meaning being found on Google for search terms that are relevant to your business, I know that it takes up to sometimes 12, 13 months on average to get that done with a dedicated team, with keeping the website technology up to date and all of that, with working with lots of writers, and then you can get to the first page. But you've just been shown a hack, a loophole, and that is
Wait,
the
Shankar, 1 second. She already
yeah.
connected with me. So Agnes, the CEO,
Oh,
the fund manager, already accepted the connection request. Why? Because connection on LinkedIn, and we won't get into this today, it's too much. But a lot of it has to do with timing. You just subscribed to my newsletter. You're right online. I'm messaging you now because if I message you later, you could be, putting your children to bed or sleeping or whatever, and I'm not the priority, right? So a lot of it has to do with timing, but go ahead.
yeah. So when you publish your LinkedIn newsletter, technically speaking, it is not just the newsletter that comes with all the benefits that we are seeing, such as finding an audience in very, very small time frame, right? But it's also you're posting a blog on a website, and we all know blogging is good, but the website is LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn domain has very, very high authority. It is well maintained, and there's a lot of history that backs the validity of the domain. Also, when Google assesses which websites are relevant, it always looks at how long has it been around, how often is it published, and also how often is it referenced, how often do other people reference LinkedIn. And all of that means you're getting 100%, LinkedIn is getting 100% of the points on all of these elements. And that means for you, in all practicality, and I didn't used to believe it, but Shanee told me and showed me, and it's absolutely true, you can be on the first page of Google sometimes in as little as a few days in fields that are highly competitive with keywords that are relevant to your business. And that means that you are capturing search intent from people from all over the world, and who are not necessarily looking on LinkedIn. They type in search keywords that are relevant to their business on Google, and the first result is the LinkedIn newsletter that was published. Actually, just yesterday, I believe, Shanee, one of our clients, sent us in a testimonial, and it's just always phenomenal to see that. So again, you've been given a huge gift, and this alone can single-handedly bring you into very profitable waters in your business.
Yeah, so one of the articles that she wrote, I think it was a couple weeks ago on LinkedIn. Let me see. Hold on. Right here. So she wrote an article on imposter syndrome for women executives, which is that's not the easiest keyword to compete with. And if you scroll down, she's right here on the first page. Click, right? And this is her newsletter. And this was published August 19th. So less than a month ago. And it took like a couple days for her to rank. And it's still first page for this keyword is wild. Yeah. Because imposter syndrome is, so prevalent of a search term. So people can start to find you outside of LinkedIn. Does this make sense? Put one in the chat if this makes sense. Put one in the chat. The other thing that you'll find is that when you launch your LinkedIn newsletter, like I'm getting so many messages. I just got a message. I'm not going to show it because the person's privacy, but from a multi-family apartment investor and joint venture syndication, whatever. He has like 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, top guy in real estate. I actually know of him through another real estate connection. And now he's asking about what it is, like how we could actually help with video and stuff. And what did I do? I just launched a newsletter. So, you get top of mind. So let's talk about the process to actually writing your newsletters, because this is where people go wrong. They go to ChatGPT too quickly without actually thinking. So once you actually launch your newsletter, it's time to really double down on the first 4. The first step here is to focus on identifying the right questions that the person may be asking, that is the target market. So the right questions, the right time, from the right person. We kind of went through this yesterday, but I cannot stress this enough because this is the first mistake that we see people make across the board. And it's probably 9 out of 10 people making this mistake. And then they're wondering why nobody's taking advantage of their call to action. So if my target audience were brand new coaches, they haven't even gotten their first client yet, I could answer a question like, how can I use LinkedIn to get my first paying clients? Now that doesn't even talk about how they would get it. Maybe in this one, I would talk about DMs or something. I could also say, how can I use LinkedIn to get my first inbound clients, right? Established coach question would be, how do I use LinkedIn to fill my group coaching program? Or maybe they're writing a book. So it could be, how do I use LinkedIn to sell at least 1,000 copies for my book launch, right? CEO question, what's the best way to leverage LinkedIn to attract high-level talent and executives? Some of you are focusing on beginner questions when it's the wrong question to answer within a newsletter for the type of market that you're trying to attract. If you have clients, you could also leverage client questions, assuming that you actually like your clients and want more clients like them. Does that make sense? Put yes in the chat. So 3 client questions recently asked of me is, how do I do my first webinar? That's always a question. I've been posting shorts on LinkedIn. So I've been posting short videos on LinkedIn for a couple weeks or for a month. Should I also post them to YouTube? What can I do to start batching my video content? So these are 3 real questions that I've been asked lately from people that have already proven that they value me because they're working with me, they're paying me, right? And they're getting results. So I would, in this situation, I would put more value on these questions. But if you don't have clients, you could kind of strategize and think about really what type of questions is the right person asking. So that's step 1. Does that make sense? Put yes in the chat so we could go to the next step. Now, for this example, let's do step 2 is focusing on answering the question in a way that is new, better, or different. And I'm going to highlight this as much as possible. Right? If you don't do this, then good luck. Then people will just, number 1, people will just assume that you're scathing the surface with your newsletter, ChatGPT this, and you don't really know what you're talking about. Even if you didn't use ChatGPT, that's going to be the assumption, right? So if you give them stuff that they've heard a million times before, it's like, you're still not proving your expertise. You're still not proving that you've been in the trenches, that you've helped people achieve this type of thing, or that you've achieved it yourself. Does that make sense? So let's take the example of what can I do to start batching my video content? I could ask myself when I'm doing that newsletter, well, what do people expect me to say? And I don't have to guess. I could go to Google. I could put in the question, what can I do to how do I start batching my video content? What could I do to start batching my video content? And I could get something, write it down on your paper, called a baseline. So a baseline is like what your audience will expect when they click on this article that they've seen people say before. So if I write, a good example would be, if I write the 10 books that will change your life as an entrepreneur, you're expecting to hear Atomic Habits. Like, it's just every entrepreneur that's done a video has included that book in it. You may even be expecting to hear that I started with Atomic Habits. And if I do that video, or if I write that newsletter, you're like, I'm out. I've heard this a million times before. Put one in the chat if you're understanding. So I'm going to see what the baseline is, and then I'm going to ask myself, because I really have this experience. I'm not writing about things that I haven't done, and I'm not writing about things that I haven't helped other people do, right? Because we're staying genuine and, in our values. Is what do I think is the best process? Or what would I recommend someone who's asking themselves this question? What process would they actually go through? And so that led me to the first point in the LinkedIn newsletter and video that I actually did create about this, which is don't batch before you hatch. Basically, don't start batching until you get good at daily videos for at least 30 days and learn how to communicate with the camera and get over all the awkwardness of looking at a green dot and pretending that it's a human being. And actually getting good, because what happens is that people will batch content and then they have no idea how to communicate with the camera, and they're batching content that makes them look like a robot or makes them look super awkward, super uncomfortable. And that doesn't necessarily build the brand that they want to build. That doesn't attract clients. It doesn't send good signals out there. Does that make sense? So I took what is the baseline versus what is my actual genuine advice, and I created a newsletter about it, where the first point especially is very different than everything else that they have ever heard of, and proves that I know what I'm talking about and that I'm actually sharing stuff from experience. And so when I read a LinkedIn newsletter, if I know that ChatGPT could have written this by itself, if it does not include other things that have contextual experience, or I helped somebody do this and this was the example, then you're not going to stand out, because everyone is using that tool. On top of that, you're going to be less likely to rank on Google, because they're looking for that contextual experience in their interweb of whatever they look at. Okay, in their eat. We won't even get into that. Does this make sense? So for every main point, you want to include your experience and examples. Now, these could be your personal examples, okay? Or this could be like client example, right? Or you could be adding commentary on what you have seen other people do that aren't even your clients. Maybe coworkers or colleagues or whatever, right? And for each main point, you want at least, experience examples. Does this make sense? So this is how I did it, or this is how I helped someone do this, or this is what I have seen other people that I know who batch their content do. To do this. All right. Are we following? So your task for today is going to be, if you didn't start a LinkedIn newsletter yet, you're going to start your LinkedIn newsletter and you're going to send it to this email, and we'll send an email so that you guys know. It'll be support@growthacademy.global. You can send it and we'll review it. We'll give you some feedback on it. Or if you already have launched your LinkedIn newsletter, I want you to write an article where you're focused on the right question for the right person. And you don't have to write the entire thing and send it in. But the first point should be something that I've never seen before, and it should be based on your experience. And when I read it, I should know how you have achieved this thing or how you helped someone else do it. And I should know where I should go for the next thing. So if I go through all of the points on the content batching, like the first point was don't batch before you hatch. I think the second point was like schedule it when you have the most energy. You know, I went through the whole thing. And then at the bottom, I need to tie my call to action to this, right? So I should always see your call to action and I should understand how it ties to this particular topic. Because if I was talking about carpentry and then I'm like, come to the LinkedIn masterclass, people are going to be like, I don't even know how that makes sense. But if I'm talking about how to start batching with video and I'm talking about like, hey, if you're not hatched yet, you know, join the 30-day LinkedIn challenge or come to the next short form video on LinkedIn masterclass, click here. That's going to make a lot more sense. So some of this is also context in helping people understand why they should even click on your call to action and what it even has to do with what they're reading now. And a lot of people like skip too many rocks or steps in between where I don't know how your call to action, like what it has to do with what I'm reading, how you help. But if through your article, I'm reading how you did it, I'm reading how you helped a couple other people, it starts to fill in the gaps. So that when you say, hey, schedule a consultation so we could talk about, you know, you becoming consistent on video on LinkedIn for 30 days, now your brain understands, oh, we're going to start there, but we're going to lead to eventual batching within 90. Does this make sense? Put yes in the chat if it makes sense, and then we'll go to Q&A. So when you send in your newsletter, the main thing, you don't have to write the whole thing, but the first point needs to be a little bit different. I just want to see kind of the question in the first point, because through that, I'll understand if you understood the assignment and how you would even weave that first point maybe into them going to your call to action. And again, it's support@growthacademy.global. All right, so now's the time to ask questions. I saw some up here. Hold on. So put your questions in the chat. Now, when we talk about, because the next question is going to be, well, Shanee, how do I grow my newsletter? How do I get more followers so I can get more subscribers to my newsletter? And, you know, how do I keep people top of mind even outside of my newsletter? All of that is content. Your content brings people, which is what we're going to cover tomorrow. Your content brings new people to your profile. Once new people go to your profile, they will get the notification to subscribe to your newsletter, which leads to more subscribers that subscribe to your LinkedIn newsletter, which if they're the right person, because if your content is bringing the right people to your profile because your messaging is correct, that leads to more of the right subscribers, which just leads to more people getting your emails every week, which just leads to more people booking calls. Does this make sense? So we shouldn't post our first issue till we have a CTA and somewhere to send people. If you haven't, so the first issue is just the launch, like what we did today, which there was really no CTA necessary, right? They're likely not going to read it. They're just going to click accept and then wait till your first real issue, which is technically the second one that they'll get in their emails. The first one, they don't get in their emails because they weren't subscribed yet. So in the second one, yes, you should have some sort of call to action. Now, that depends on, like, let's say you have no offer. Maybe the call to action is for them to just ask you a question so that you know what questions to answer for future newsletters. Maybe the call to action is to come to your first LinkedIn live event that you're going to be hosting, or to DM you a certain word, because you want to give them a free resource. Like, it really just depends on what you're trying to build and what you have now. Yes, your call to action should be explicitly stated in the newsletter. And the better you get at it, it could be explicitly stated multiple times. And a lot of this, which we'll kind of build up to, is, remember, why is your free offer better? Like, if your call to action makes perfect sense for them, is kind of designed about around the right person, helping them at the right time, you've proven your expertise, and it's also just a great call to action for them, then you won't have difficulty. But if you're like, yeah, come to my consultation, well, what happens in the consultation? Right? People don't like uncertainty. Do I use the second article to introduce myself in more detail? Or would it be in my case about female leadership content? So, I think your profile should do that, right? Like, your profile should always answer, who is this person? What have they accomplished themselves? What have they helped other people accomplish? It should be a synopsis of that. If you're going to share more about yourself, like, I would never share about myself without it having a reason for the share. So if I share about how I started with nothing and how I got my first client on LinkedIn within the first 30 days, I'm going to share that with the intention of helping someone who's brand new, who doesn't have a business, understand how I did it, walk them through the entire process. And, like, I'm going in there with an intention. I'm not just going in there to just talk about myself. So it depends. So for those of us who published our newsletter and didn't wait for Shanee's guidance, is it possible to change the topic and picture? Yeah, it's possible to change the topic and picture, but just understand that it'll only, like, if you look at your subscribers and they're not the right people, then, like, when new clients come to us and they have a newsletter, we audit the subscribers. If the subscribers are not the right people, then we will scrap that newsletter and relaunch with a better strategy. If they are the right people, you could potentially change the title and the picture, but just know that you're only really affecting future subscribers. Yeah, getting them to ask a question is also, so a call to action is really one thing that you inspire people to do based on whatever it is that you created, and that's real influence. If people say that they're influential, but they can't get someone to book a consultation, then I would argue that they're not. Right? Are there any additional insights, anything different for launching a second newsletter? It depends what the goal is. We have clients that they're a little bit more established. They may want a newsletter for their direct customers and maybe for their, B2B customers, or they may want a newsletter for their customers and then more for, like, talent acquisition. So it depends. It depends what the purpose is. Could the CTA be two things? I'd say no. You're going to get less response. What should be the tone and style of my newsletter? Whatever your tone and style is. Right? So that's the other thing is like a good test of this is how do you talk? How do you naturally communicate? And maybe do like a voice note or transcribe how you actually communicate. If you're brief and you talk with, kind of bullet points or whatever, then that should be the style in your newsletter. Because the thing is if you do video or if you build up to live video, if you're sending me like 3-word memos in your newsletter that are very robotic, and then I get to your live video and you're a phenomenal storyteller, you are a little bit superfluous with your words, you're super charismatic, and you're just a different type of communicator, I'm going to be like, oh, he must not be writing his newsletters. That must be ChatGPT. Right? Or it could be the opposite. Your newsletters could be phenomenal. Your newsletters could seem like you know it all. And then I get to your video or your live and I ask you a question and you have no idea what you're talking about. Then I'm going to be like, it was definitely ChatGPT. Right? So I think like brand wise, it just has to be how you naturally communicate as part of it. There has to be certain standards, like a title. You want the sub headlines. Maybe if you put a quote, you want to quote it in the blocks, but you also don't want to just copy somebody else and like not put your own seasoning on it. Does this make sense? And I was thinking I could open, I don't know if I'm going to, but I could open has anyone been in a LinkedIn audio room? Put 1 or 2 in the chat. Yes or no? A LinkedIn audio room is like what Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces is, where you could come up to the stage and ask interactive questions. I may do that. Should we do that today or tomorrow? After the live video, like do the Q&A there, because it's like talking on the phone where I could hear you and I could ask you questions and actually give you answers. They've never been in a LinkedIn audio room. That's wild.
Well, there's something else to experience.
Do you want me to open one? I could open one. Hold on. It's okay. All right. Hold on. We could do it for like 20 minutes. Hold on. I can't believe they don't know that. Well, I mean, we're going to cover it on LinkedIn newsletters Q&A. Q&A. All right. What time is it? We'll do okay. Okay. All right. I just created it. And let me put the link in the chat. So all you have to do is click this link, and then you'll be able to ask me questions like if we were on the phone. And it's fun. If you come to the stage, you'll get a bunch of followers. You'll be able to ask a question, share maybe your experience in the master class. All right, hold on. Share. So that's the link. I'm going to make sure that you copy it. Hold on. Let me see if I could pin it.
I just did.
Okay, so Shankar just pinned it to the top. So make sure that you hop over there. You're about to see Shanee Moret is in a live audio room, whatever. LinkedIn newsletters, Q&A. And then all you have to do is click in. And then you'll see your face bubble and all of that come in. And then you'll be able to actually come to the stage and share and ask me a question. All right? All right, we'll see you there. Bye.